I'm Becky. I'm a half Korean model from the United States. I'm 176 centimeters tall and I currently live and work in South Korea.
Let's do that again because your hair is in your eye.
Babe, why are you making this intro so difficult? I'm Becky. I'm half Korean model from the United States. I'm 176 centimeters tall and I currently live and work in South Korea. Growing up, I was really skinny. I was too skinny and very tall. And so even in like high school, people would ask me to be a model for like their cheer clothes or for this. And it was something that I enjoyed. I think I always liked being in front of the camera. But we moved a lot. We were moving all the time. So there was no agency that would sign me on. And also I guess I just didn't know too much about it, honestly. And then I would say in university, I suffered a lot of complexes about my height, and I did gain a little weight. I was pretty chubby in university. And so I kind of like threw the dream away, I guess. And then it was actually, there was a year when I was living in Colorado and I was signed on by an agency there, and I did some fashion shows and some shoots here and there for like a magazine. And then I came to Korea and that's kind of where it really took off. It's a really long story, but essentially I did training with an agency here, and a couple months later they signed me on. And that was when I was officially, like an officially professional signed high fashion model. And then after that, when the contract ended, I have just been doing freelance ever since. So I was working at a job. I was actually teaching English, and it wasn't even a year. And I was very, very miserable and unhappy. And so I used to look up Korean models. You know, I don't know exactly why I started doing that, but I did. And there was one model in particular that I was a really big fan of. And I just thought she was so cool. And I was thinking, gosh, to be a model, like, I think you could get some proper respect. I especially thought in Korea, they really care about your image. I was checking their specs, like, hey, I'm as tall as her. Hey, I have those same measurements, you know. Oh, hey, I'm the same age. So I thought, okay, it's gonna be possible for me. Then I decided if I'm going to do this modeling thing, I'm just gonna do it once, and I'm going to do it with the best. I'm not gonna just scrape my way through as an amateur. I'm gonna go with the top, the best, or I'm not gonna do it at all. So there was this one agency that I wanted to be signed by. I was way too scared to call them. I was way too scared to even make, an appointment. I didn't even know if it was allowed. So I said to myself one Saturday, let's just look at the building. Like, let's just see what the building looks like, okay? And then you can slowly build your courage up over time. So it was one Saturday, and I wasn't even living in Seoul at the time. So I had to take the bus, came all the way up here, and I found it, and I just sat right outside of the building. I sat outside the building, and I just looked at it because it was so big and scary to me. And I remember just staring at it thinking, I'll go inside. No, I won't. I'll go inside. No, I won't. And I got up to leave, and I got a phone call from my sister. She said, what are you doing? And I told her, oh, I'm standing outside that agency and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, should I go inside or not? And she says so nonchalantly, she's like, just go inside. And so I took it as a sign. I said, okay, I'll go inside now, bye. So I literally just walked into this agency, which now, after having been with them and worked there for 2 years, I know that's like a no. They don't accept people like that. Anyway, so I just walked in and I literally just looked in all the windows of the offices because I was being very snoopy. And finally somebody stopped me, and they said, can we help you? I was like, I had no answer. They said, are you here for the model agency, like the academy? I said, yes, I am. I am here for the academy. I didn't know there was an academy. And they said, they just looked me up and down like this. And she said, follow me. And then we went over to the office and she asked me, okay, what's your height? They checked my weight, they checked my measurements, they said your age, where you from, and do you speak Korean? And then they were like, okay, we'll give you a call if we want to see you again. So I left thinking, what just happened, And they did call me. They actually called me when I was on the plane flying back to the US for a break. And I was literally at the airport when they called me. They said, "Hi, we want to see you for a second audition. Are you going to be available on this day?" I said, "No, I'm going to the US. I'm not going to be free." They said, "Okay, then we're going to make an allowance for you. You can just arrive on the final audition date where they do the walking audition. And that's going to be a month later. So just come on that day and we'll tell them who you are." So I said, "Thank you so much." And so I remember I literally flew back in. It must have been the day right afterwards. I flew back to Korea. I came back up to Seoul. It took me like an hour to get up to the agency. Hour and a half. Drive up, and then I just walked right in. I said, "I'm here for my audition." And they let me do my walk, my introduction. They said class starts in 20 minutes, so if you want to do it, go now. So that's how I started being a trainee at one of the biggest agencies in Seoul. And I did that for a month and a half every single day. And yeah, I guess that's kind of how it began. Bad. This is not to say every person who is signed on with a big agency in Korea will have a bad experience. I had a really bad experience. I think there's a lot of reasons for it, honestly. Maybe my expectations were too high, or the system. Anyway, long story short, it was a really very rough time. I think emotionally it was really hard. And then physically, it was very hard. Mentally, very hard. Yeah, so it was not a good time. I'm a couple years out of that now, and I'm very thankful for it. And I look back and say like, wow, I learned so much, and you know, I won't ever disrespect myself like that again. But if I look at, you know, total of my years here in Korea, and I consider what was my hardest period, it would have been during that time. So I myself enjoy like commercial work, and I like music videos, and I prefer like speaking in front of people more than high fashion. High fashion is cool, walking the runway is cool, but I personally find that you can express yourself a lot more in a commercial with acting. Now I do more like video and commercial work, which, so it is a model, yes, but I try to shy a little away from the title as just model. Myself, I've had my own experiences with it, and personally, I want to say like, no, I'm not a model. But the work just keeps coming and I don't reject it, and I'm very thankful for that. I really like commercial shoots. I think those are really fun. I did the one most recently, well not most recently, but I did the Paradise Casino with Lee Byung-hun, and for me, I enjoyed the most seeing him in action. That to me was so cool because he's a very famous actor here in Korea, and he has this charismatic, intensive energy inside him, and I don't think that's a common thing in people. And I just thought, wow, if I could carry this energy, this je ne sais quoi, right? That to me would be like a memorable, you would be like a person that people would remember. So it was so cool to see that up close, because I don't get starstruck easily, but I saw him and he has this just intense, you know, I was one of the main actresses in the commercial, and he was like the main. And he would speak to the director, like he would just be thinking, the director would say, okay, you're gonna do this. And I remember one time when he said to the director, okay, well, if I do this, then she should be behaving like this, right? Isn't that a normal human response? And the director was like, no, she's supposed to be doing this because this is her action. This is what we want her to do. But he wasn't thinking of like, oh, this is the action, this is the scene, this was what would look great. What he was thinking was, this is what's real. This is really how she would react. This is a human behavior, isn't it? And it was so cool to see this like actor come head to head with this director who was commercialized, who knew what he wanted, what would look good, versus the actor had this energy that was like, this is how you would express it. So that was so cool to see. And I see that more often on shoots with people who really are an artist. Those are the shoots that I remember. People who are pretty, or people who are tall or skinny, or people who hear all the time, you're beautiful and special. That's a different person than somebody who just carries that in them, because they don't need anyone to, you know, you don't have to point it out to someone to say, look at me, I'm special, I'm special. It's like, people will see that magnetism. That's what I admire. So when I see that on a shoot, I think, yeah, I think that's really cool. No, models do not. There are a handful of models who make decent money, but now we live in this era of, we call it modeltainer, where they would always expect you to be able to sing well, or you have to dance well, or you have to be really good on camera. There are definitely people who are pretty faces, who look great in a photograph, but you put them in front of a camera and you're like, where is your brain? And so you have to have this like attractiveness factor in many different arenas. And so that's why, for example, I had done a TV show. It's kind of like a supermodel TV show search. I'm not gonna tell you the name, but it was a really big TV show. And first step, they would say the foundation is you have to look like a model, but you have to have the personality of a TV entertainer and the skill set of a singer or a b-boy dancer. And so in Korea, the competition is very intense and also very manufactured. So you're gonna have models who are just churned out of the factory, similar to what I was, but it doesn't mean anything. That's why, like, you can count on your hand. Here in Korea, well-known models are faces, but in general, I can't say. And also, like, Korea has a very specific, narrow mindset on what is supposed to be a good, successful model. I have a friend who, he was modeling with the same agency with me for a couple years, and they were consistently saying behind his back, like, he's getting too old, he's never gonna make it, he's not. Then he goes off to Milan and walks for like Burberry. Like, the mindset is not always the same. And people have different perspectives on what is beauty and what looks good. So you can't get caught up with that. But that being said, here in Korea, it's very narrow and very competitive. So no, I would not say high fashion modeling is where you're gonna make your money. I think is the collective shaming. That is my least favorite moments. I was doing an audition for Fashion Week, and all the designers were there to see you at one time, and then you just walk, and all the models who are doing an audition are all there. It can be like 100 people, and then like, 12, 15 designers sitting there and watching you, and then you come out, you walk, and it's pretty, you walk, pose, turn, and walk back. So you're very close to them. And I just remember one time when I was walking, and I walked and I stood in front of them, and for that split second when you stand there and then pose, I distinctly heard one of the designers say, fat. And the designer sitting next to her laughed. And it's very obvious. And everyone, who else are they talking about? So it's the collective shaming, I think, is one of the worst feelings in the world. Yeah, and then another time was when I was a model for a drama, and they had us in summer wear, so like swimsuits or short dresses, but we were filming in the middle of winter, and we sat outside on the set from 7 a.m. until 4 a.m. the next morning in freezing weather in summer clothes, and they had no heaters for us, no blankets for us, no hot packs for us, nothing. And they just expected us just to be there. Because as a model, you're just a face. You're just a body. And that is a borderline abuse, I don't know. Yeah, and so actually after that shoot, I had a terrible fear of the cold for maybe 2 or 3 years. And I just every time I was out in the cold weather, I would have like a really horrible fear. And even now I don't like cold weather, but I've gotten over it over time. But yeah, I distinctly remember that was one of my worst experiences. I think you feel it. You definitely feel it. I remember I would have like model 동생s who would always say like, oh, 언니, because you're so exotic looking, you're not full Korean, like you're gonna stand out, you're gonna be so special. You have this one mindset. On the other hand, none of those models who are saying that to me want to hang out with me. It's not a competitive thing, it's just, we just can't get on with her. Like half of the time is saying, oh, you're so like, oh, you're like half Korean, it's so cool. Wow, you're gonna be so special. But then while this is happening simultaneously is also, but you're also foreigners, so we're not gonna invite you when we hang out, or we don't consider you one of us. So maybe it was specifically in my agency where that's very, very strong, because they try to keep the models like tied together, close, you know, and they would separate you. These ones do this kind, these ones do this kind. Yeah, and I don't think I ever fit into any category of what they expected. And also myself being half Korean and not having been raised in Korea, it was like partly expected to follow the hierarchies and the rules. But if I couldn't do it well, then it was pointed out to me that because you are not Korean, you don't know how to do it. So hearing that over and over again is it's really hard and very demoralizing, honestly. So it's not just about your physical appearance, it's kind of like the way you think is also wrong, or you just don't get the culture. Yeah, so it's hard being expected to follow the guidelines and fit the hierarchy and fit the structure, but when you don't, it's pointed out that it's because you're a foreigner, you can't do it. So that's kind of, I guess you have this push and pull all the time. Yeah, and I think a lot of half Koreans I know who talk to me, at least who are interested in becoming a model, oftentimes come with the mindset of like, well, because I'm half Korean, they're gonna really accept me, but I have the exotic flair, so I'm gonna do really well. Just having that look doesn't equate success or being well liked. Don't rely on it. If you want to be a model, you're gonna have to make risks, and you're gonna have to work hard, and you're probably gonna take a lot of punches. But you cannot be just a model. For yourself personally, you want to develop your mind, you want to develop your skills and talents, you want to develop your personality so that you aren't just a clothes hanger for the entirety of your life. You want to be proud of who you are, not of how you just look. So that is advice for everyone who wants to actively pursue modeling as a career. You need to be proud of who you are as a person, not just how you look. And that can be hard when the whole world around you is saying like, you have beautiful skin, you have beautiful hair, you have beautiful eyes, beautiful teeth. Those things eventually, like, they will go away. And you want to remain that person inside. That's one thing. For younger girls or guys who are half Korean or foreigners who want to be models here in Korea, there's kind of different tiers of ways to get in. And eventually, especially if you speak Korean, it helps the process so much faster. But you kind of recognize like, you want to do this work, you don't want to do this work. This work will look good for your image, this one won't look good for your image. Don't get caught up with the set of like, oh, they're gonna pay me this much money for this hour to do this kind of shoot, when those photos are gonna exist forever. And you don't want to be ashamed of any work that you've done. So,
how was it being interviewed by me?
You are excellent in all ways.
Oh yeah? She's got her model persona. Cool, well hopefully you guys enjoyed that, getting to know Becky a little bit. You know, we realized that she hasn't really had an opportunity to go into detail a little bit more about her as a person. And so hopefully you found that interesting. All right guys, make sure you follow us on social media. Also subscribe to this channel, click that notification bell, follow us on the Happy Project podcast. And for those of you guys supporting us on Patreon, thank you so much. For those of you guys that are interested or would want to consider supporting us on Patreon, visit the Patreon link in the description. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Remember to always seize the day. Peace.